Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah, that'd be me. Sounding more nasal than I normally do. It's a sure sign of the oncoming autumn, because that's when my allergies kick in. And I've tried mightily to get myself sounding a little better. There's a ton of used Kleenex right over to my right, which is indicative of my efforts, but it hasn't worked. So anyway, here I am for whatever. It's a beautiful day. God, this is my kind of weather. Oh, God. I just love it. I love it. I found something out yesterday which was totally new to me. Didn't have a clue. Never heard a whisper of it. And I'm going to pass it on to you because it also struck me as bizarre. I was meeting with some friends who had badgered me into attempting to learn how to play Mahjong. Good God. So that was my first introduction. And first of all, I just want to say about that. Good God. Talk about weird. I mean, I can see why people would get into it, but it was exercising my head in ways my head was really reluctant to engage. So I don't know that I'm going to continue, but good God, it was so weird. The rules, the strange, never mind. It's just unbelievable. That's a game that, I guess out of China, right? That has probably ancient and remarkably fascinating in many ways, but whatever. Anyway, so all of these people I was with are people who work at the University of Pittsburgh, and as such are constantly interacting with college students. And I happened to mention to them in between asking questions like, well, what is that if I do a consecutive run of this suit with those birds on it? I have to tell you, the game is beyond belief. Oof. Anyway, I mentioned the woman I'd interviewed yesterday about letter writing and how she had said that her students, she felt, did not have the same kind of appreciation or expectation, I think is probably the better word, of privacy that us older folks do. I mean, just doesn't exist. In fact, she had said, and this is what I passed on to them, she had said that they actually feel safe being surveilled. Their answer to everything is put a camera. Put a camera up. And what was interesting is when I relayed that to the women I was with, they all said, oh, yeah. I mean, that absolutely rang true to them. This comfort of being on camera all the time, which, of course, harkens back to my initial observation that they don't value privacy. It's not a value for them. Security is more of a value. Interesting. But then they told me something that blew my mind, and I thought they were kidding me. They said it has to do with toes, P-O-E-S, those little things at the end of your feet. Toes. I was told, and I understood it to be college girls or women, but I don't know if it's also men, that they are fearful of showing their toes in public. Privacy for toes is something they really are into. It's bizarre. Privacy for toes, their toes. And I said, well, I never much liked my toes. I was late to being able to wear sandals because my brother used to make fun of my big toe. But no, that's not it. It's because they're on camera all the time. Their expectation is that people will see all parts of themselves that they offer up to the cameras. And toes are something they're loath to show because apparently they feel, right, that there is an awful lot of, I understood to be guys, who are toe fetishists. Is this even possible, what I'm telling you? That because they said you do not see girls' toes on campus. And ever since they said that, and I was on campus when they were telling me this, I was looking for toes. And you know what? I did not see any on a summer day. No. And in fact, they say when they wear sandals, they wear socks. What? Because of fear of what? Being stalked by a toe fetishist? Tell me they weren't pulling my leg. I could tell they weren't. I just couldn't believe it. And I'm telling you, if you go next time you're on a college campus, check to see if you can find a female toe exposed. Now, one of the other women said, it's interesting, isn't it, seeing as they expose so much else. Half are walking around half naked. You're seeing everybody's midriff now. But toes are off limits. Just say it. Who knew? Let me do a little aside here to our producer, Kevin. Hey, Kevin, ask around if that's not something the eagle-eyed journalists at City Paper don't want to do something with. Try to find a naked, exposed toe in Oakland. Just say it. God almighty. So that was, I don't think I'm going to be playing Mahjong, but I learned that. Incredible. Whew. Okay. I've got a little list here. I'm scratching toes off. It's last day of the week for me, and as such, I tend to do this grab baggy kind of thing, neither here nor there, hop, skipping, and jumping hither and yon in no apparent order. I thought of an adjective that I don't think I've spoken out loud in a million years, and I'm about to. Feckless. Isn't that a good word? Feckless. spelled just like it sounds, Feckles, feckless. And you know, the word popped into my head when I was looking at a photo of the Speaker of the House, McCarthy. Is that not the perfect word? I didn't even look up the exact definition, but understand that's what feckless means. An idiot. I mean, somebody who doesn't have a clue. Somebody who everything they do is like, no, is wrong. Feckless. What? You know, sometimes you just look at your fellow man and woman and everybody in between as, you know, with your jaw agape, because you just can't comprehend how somebody like him, supposedly a man of great station. In fact, what? He's third in line for the presidency. Dear God, I never thought of that before. If Biden and Harris were like, he'd be the president. And this is a guy who has that status, that stature, and none of the weight that should go with it. Now here my words are failing me. He none of the he has. Well, I say this about Republicans all the time. But he has no shame. He's willing to debase himself openly to hang on to power. He's willing to blow in the wind, do whatever the person who he's at that moment speaking to, do whatever it is they're telling him to do, and then just turn on a dime and do the opposite. He has the only thing that drives him, obviously, is acquiring and holding on to power. Who does that remind you of? Donald Trump. It's a Republican thing. I mean, it's a human thing. But the Republicans as a whole lust, it seems, for power. For power simply because it's power. Not because they want to necessarily employ it. They just want it. So McCarthy, every time you look at that guy, I want you to think, feckless. And as long as we're on Republicans, I might as well. So Romney's calling it quits. He has, I've been, he's not, as Republicans go, he's better than most. That's a fact. There is, I think he's capable of shame. I think he does have a functional moral compass, even though I don't always agree with where it takes him. And his political career, I was trying to remember, wasn't he I think of him in Mormon, Utah, senator from Utah. But wasn't he the governor of Massachusetts? Help me here. Wasn't he? How'd that happen? I can't remember. And I don't think I'm misremembering. Maybe I am. But I swear to God, he was the governor. So he's been a governor of someplace. I thought Massachusetts. Doesn't make any sense. Senator from Utah. He was the Republican presidential nominee and fell short, losing to Obama, right? And I mean, I actually was reminded of his father. Now, this will put him in another state, Michigan. His father was the governor of Michigan. These Romneys get around. And his father, I would have been in high school at that point. And even in high school, I was interested and really interested in the news, national news, especially. And I don't remember what year it was, but there was a heck of a primary season, be way back in the 60s, early 60s. And what was his name? It wasn't Mitt, but George Romney, Mitt's dad, who was the governor of Michigan. This is just off my memory, my fading memory, was one of the guys who was attempting to secure the nomination of the Republican Party for the presidency. And I don't know why, but I was really fascinated by learning about all the people, all the men who were in the race. And of all those men, it was Romney, George, that I thought was the most presidential. I liked him. I thought he seemed like a good guy. And you know what did him in? Again, this is my memory. He said he'd been brainwashed about something. When asked about, I don't know, was it Vietnam? Was it something about Vietnam? He said, well, I was brainwashed. And anyway, just that remark did him in. Well, if you're capable of being brainwashed, obviously you're not capable of being president of the United States. He was out, gone, finished. Boy, those were the days. Those were the days. One little wrong word, move, and you're toast. And now you look what we get. Donald Trump. There's nothing off limits now. It used to be too stringent. You couldn't say you were brainwashed. But yeah, George Romney, I swear, he was the governor of Michigan. And how the hell? Okay, never mind. Doesn't matter. But the interesting stuff I saw, by the way, Romney, again, and I know this is true, I believe he was the only Republican senator in the first impeachment of Donald Trump to vote to convict. The second impeachment, he also voted to convict. So to say he is an outlier and has been in this Republican Party is an understatement, huge understatement. But among the reporting I saw about him announcing that he was not going to run again for re-election is this fascinating. First of all, there was there's apparently a book coming out about him. And a quote from the book is this. This is Romney speaking. A very large portion of my party really doesn't believe in the Constitution. Now, we know that's true, but to have a Republican senator say it, and he doesn't say a few, he says a very large portion of my party does not believe in the Constitution. And I've been saying that, of course, but they don't, because they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in the whole idea of this country. They're traitors. They're traitors. These are people all who raise their right hands and pledged to uphold the very Constitution that Mitt Romney tells us they don't believe in. So they're a lying bunch of traitors, as I've been saying. I appreciate Romney's assist there. But the other thing that came out is, again, this is from this book that's coming out called Romney, A Reckoning. 4 days before January 6th, before they stormed the Capitol, these traitors, 4 days before, January 2, Romney sent a text message to Mitch McConnell. And he said this, here's the message. In case you haven't heard this, I just got a call from Angus King. Angus King, you may know, is the independent senator from where? Maine? Vermont? I don't know. I just got a call from Angus King, who said that he had spoken with a senior official at the Pentagon who reports that they're seeing very disturbing social media traffic regarding protests planned on the 6th. There are calls to burn down your home, Mitch, to smuggle guns into D.C., and to storm the Capitol. I hope that sufficient security plans are in place, but I am concerned that the instigator, the president, is the one who commands and reinforces the D.C. and Capitol Police commands the reinforcements the D.C. and Capitol Police might require. Romney sent that 4 days before all of that, except the burning down of Mitch's house, occurred. 4 days before the undersecured Capitol building was breached. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. They knew. They were warned. And they did nothing. Oh, I'm just saying. Oh, thank you. Some of you guys are helping. Laura writes, George Romney was Michigan governor. Oh, he couldn't run for president because he wasn't born in the U.S. He was born in Mexico. But he was running. I swear to God he was running. All right. I was for him. I mean, he was running for the nomination. Anyway, Mitt was governor of Massachusetts. He was. Huh. Well, how the hell did that happen? How are you the governor of Massachusetts and then the senator from Utah? I know people can travel, but okay, never mind. Still need to figure out George Romney. Was he? Never mind. Laura also says she loved the show yesterday, and she says she does write letters to her grandson often. Oh, how nice! But she acknowledges he's not good at writing back. Yeah, because they. Oh, well, it's sweet of you to write. Oh. Okay, here, Milton, my guy. Willard Mitt Romney is an American politician, served as the junior senator from Utah. Yes. Served as the 70th governor of Massachusetts and was the Republican nominee for president. I got that. Okay. I did get that. But what about his dad? Okay. I think that's all correct. What about the old brainwashed George Romney? Gigi writes, I loved your guest yesterday. Always love your show. Back to toes, though. Years ago, I worked downtown, and one of my coworkers came back from lunch in her bare feet. She explained that a man had approached her and offered her $50 for her shoes. That was a lot of money. So she sold her shoes and walked back the short distance to our workplace in her bare feet. She didn't care that he must have been a foot fetish. Oh, God. Oh, God. There must be more of them than we know. What was the famous picture of somebody sucking on someone's toes? Who was that? It's a royal. It's royal toes, I think. What am I remembering? God help me. Okay. Okay, toes. Romney. Boebert. I don't even want to. I don't want to, but I'm sure by now you have seen that another fine example of what the Republican Party has come. Gotten the word right about where we've come. She said lowered expectations. There is no expectation of a so-called leader, a governor, a president, or anybody comporting themselves in an exemplary manner. There's none. And in fact, to do so, to behave in some kind of a exemplary manner is, well, it's considered, I guess, weak and or quaint and or it doesn't make you electable. I give you Donald Trump. So I don't know. So Boebert, the cops, can you imagine you're watching this is in Denver. She's at a musical, a play, a musical that I didn't know they made Beetlejuice. Michael Keaton starred in the movie that was made into a musical. And she was at a production of Beetlejuice. And she and the guy she was with apparently were making so much noise and were using their cell phones and recording all again, behavior that is unacceptable. And the theaters, people started complaining and asking that these people be removed. And so they were. But it took a while to remove them. And there's security footage of how long it took. There's guys that come over to her while the play's going on. And they're saying, excuse me, but you're going to have to leave. And, I mean, you can't. That's what they're saying. And she refuses. Eventually, she says, call the police if you want. Well, it is the police. Then the police come. They take her out. Well, she goes by. It's not like they had their hands on her. She leaves. And this is a fine example of what the Republican Party has devolved to. A more honorable human, a recognizable human like Mitt Romney is leaving. Goodbye, says he. And this is what we have that stays. Boebert. God almighty. And she treats the whole thing like it's a joke. And she, of course, was yelling, "Do you know who I am? I'm going to call the mayor. I'm going to this and that." God almighty. Okay, so there's that. I can't. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I guess I will. Now seems as good a time as any. And maybe I've mentioned it, but I guess it was years ago that I started noticing, because I consider myself a good driver, a defensive driver, that when a light turned green, it would behoove me to look both ways before proceeding, because people were, blowing through red lights, or as you guys say around here, red lights. I say red light. They were blowing through them. Used to be, back in the day, I kid you not, a light turned green and you go. There was just this trust. Everybody sort of, agreed. Oh, yeah. And then I could see that was not smart. Now, in between the red and the green, there is, of course, the yellow light, which is the warning that it's about to turn red. And my understanding, because I remember my driver's education, was if you saw a yellow light, you slowed down, you stopped. It was about to turn red. That's not what it means anymore. I'm just saying. You probably you're ahead of me here. That's not what it means. Most of my life, that's what it meant. And that's what all the other drivers drove that way. You see the yellow light, and you essentially treat it like a red. And now it's quite clear. You see a yellow light, and you treat it like green. You treat it like step on the gas. And so what happens now, and you guys all know this if you drive, that once a light turns red, there are still cars that are coming through because they saw the yellow light. They might have been a whole block back, but they've gunned it. They're in no position to stop, and they blow right through. Now, the other day, came upon a yellow light as I neared an intersection, and my old instincts kicked in, and I stepped on the brakes. And damn, if the car behind me didn't lay on the horn. There was one pissed off driver behind me because he was behind me and he was intent on blowing through that intersection, which would have been a red light by the time he got there. So it brings up a lot of issues. First of all, this can't have gone unnoticed by the people whose job it is to keep public, the roadways working. It requires a social contract. The fact that we all get in these big vehicles and drive at often high speeds, and we adhere to certain rules so that mayhem doesn't ensue. But this country right now is filled with people who flout the rules. There is no expectation that the person in the next car is agreeing with the rules that used to be. You do know what I'm saying? It is, and traffic deaths are up. Well, you bet they're up. And people are saying, oh, it's road rage. It's more than road rage. Now, where I knew it was over and done with, and I'm doing a shout out here to Laura, who we already heard from. When I was visiting my brother in Ann Arbor, maybe 6 months ago, I was in the passenger seat of his car driven by his wife. Now, his wife, my sister-in-law, is about as adult a person as you'd ever want to know. I mean, she is a rule follower. She is not a bomb thrower. She is not a, she's just a solid person. And she was driving. And I was not a risk taker. And she startled me once by speeding up at a yellow light and blowing through it wasn't red, it was yellow. But if I had been at the helm, I would have stopped. And I didn't say anything, surprisingly. But then she did it again. And I still didn't say anything, but I was getting nervous. And on the third one, and there was a third one, I did literally, I said, Kathy, what are you doing? And she said, well, it was yellow. I said, exactly. What do you mean it was yellow? It was yellow. What does yellow mean? And it's extremely bright, not young, younger than me, but she's already in her head, yellow means speed up. Well, if my sister-in-law thinks yellow is speed up. And I said, but that's not what it means. And she says, well, it does now. She says, that's what everybody does. And it's sort of like, I'm always screaming about people using words wrong or blah, 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 blah. The fact is, if everybody says a word is what it is, then even the guys who write the dictionary say, okay, I guess it is. So all I'm saying is that yellow lights, if they're still teaching kids, student drivers, to slow down on a yellow, they are not teaching them what I get the sense of now the majority of drivers think of as yellow. It doesn't work anymore. Just saying. Yellow lights, R-I-P. That's all. Curtains, it's done. Laura, right, she wrote this before I mentioned that. In Ann Arbor, many of the traffic lights are red in all directions for a few seconds. Laura, they do that here now too. That has been the response to this. You're right. This is the response. They know everybody's blowing through them. So now the red lights stay red in all directions so nobody moves. And you let the people, but the people who blow through red lights are onto this too. That's not going to work. It still behooves each and every one of us to, I'm telling you, just creep out of, just start real slow. After the red lights have been red for 2-3 seconds, before they even give anyone a green, hoping all the red light runners have gotten through. Just God, I don't. You see, once the understood rules that in order for an entire system to function, to work, become for a lot of people, it all breaks down. I mean, this country is becoming the wild, wild west in almost every aspect. And Laura, that's smart. Laura says, I always check my rear view mirror when the light turns yellow to see if a speeding driver is behind me. Exactly. And you'll be rear-ended if you do the right thing. And so, God almighty. So we're all figuring this out on our own. My sister-in-law decides to join the bad guys, which is amazing to me. I don't know. We have a caller. Hello.
Hi, Lynn. All your talk of yellow lights made me think of the show. I don't know if you remember the show Taxi in like the late 70s, early 80s. Mm-hmm. And the character Jim Ignatowski, who was this perpetual pothead, and they were trying to get him to get his hack license. And he's taking his driver's test, and he couldn't figure out this one question. Of course, all the drivers are close by trying to help him pass his test. So he just goes, "What does the yellow light mean?" And the one guy, they know they're being watched, he goes, "Slow down." And he goes, "What does a yellow light mean?" and the other drivers go, "Slow down." What does that was the whole. So every time you said yellow light, I don't know why my head went to that bit of slow down.
Well, there's another thing. There's a film. Stars one of the Bridges brother, Jeff or something, and he is an alien who is in human form, who's come for some reason to the United States, and he's in a car with some woman, and he's driving, and he's been watching drivers, and he's approaching a light intersection, and it turns yellow. And he guns it, and she says, "No, yellow me." But I can't remember exactly what happens. But after they avoid, certain death, he's so confused because he looks at her and says, "But that's what I've been observing, and yellow seems to mean accelerate." Now that's an older movie, so I guess that's always been the case. I don't know.
Well, I think also the other thing, two things I think that have contributed to bad driving. One, COVID definitely has screwed up drivers. Either people being overly cautious or, as you said, just the wild, wild west. I always find myself if I, would go and work in a large metropolitan area where driving, it's a sport. It's highly aggressive. And then you come back to the small burbs of West Virginia. I'm just not the same driver that I was when I left.
Right.
Also, real quick, the toe sucker in the Royals, I think that was the tapes that was released with Prince Charles, or now King Charles, and Camilla.
No?
It
was Sarah Ferguson.
Oh,
the Duchess of York.
Fergie. Okay.
And her toes were being sucked by I don't know who.
Okay, I had the wrong royal. And then
some balding guy.
And then Romney. I kind of wonder if if Mike Lee, who's the other senator from Utah, who definitely is the strong Trumper in the Senate. He's kind of with the Hawleys and Cruzes and that ilk. I wonder if he lost his reelection bid if Mitt would have stayed on. Because I know one of the things was Mike Lee was, when the race was getting really tight, he kept asking Mitt for support. And Mitt said, no, I need to stay impartial here because I don't know what's going to happen. So I kind of wonder if that didn't kind of help expedite it. Plus that, too, you're going to have a change in Republican leadership, minority, majority. We know Mitch is definitely not going to be. Yeah. So,
and God help us. It'll only be worse. It can only be worse.
Oh, it definitely will be. Even though you can see now, he's trying to push Thune out there more and more with comments and things like that, kind of taking over the diplomatic role. But yeah, it'll be someone like a Hawley or a Cruz or Mike Lee or the Scott from Florida, who tried to take on.
God.
Mm-hmm. So you can't blame the guy for saying, you know what, I've done my time, I'm done.
Yeah. Oh God, God knows where we're heading.
Hey, at least we know what yellow means.
Yeah. All right, there.
Thank you.
Stop terrorizing your fellow drivers in West Virginia there.
Will do. Bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, I Googled this. Governor George Romney was a leading contender for the 1968, Republican presidential nomination. Oh, I was 20 years old. No, it's in 1967, actually. So when he told a television reporter that he had been brainwashed by American generals into supporting the Vietnam War while touring Southeast Asia in 1965. He began that did it. He became the target of blistering press and partisan attacks. His candidacy never recovered from using that term, that he had been brainwashed. So even if he would not, let's say he would have gotten the nomination, there might have been an effort then to keep him off the ballot because he was born out of the country. But his parents, I believe, were Americans. So if you're born out of the country to Americans, you're still an American citizen. These guys were they were in Mexico because they were polygamists. And I can't even, all those straight arrow, Romneys. They were, so the Mexican connection is, I guess, them running from the U.S. at one point, right? Because they were polygamists. I don't know. God almighty, you can't make this stuff up. You can't. So, I have a few more little things here. I want to say that the murderer who was on the lam for 2 weeks getting captured is no shock. That he was taken alive is a little bit of a shock to me. It's no shock because I think, as I mentioned last week, it's one guy with nothing, nothing, no food, no vehicle, no anything, and a raid against 100 with airplanes and heat-seeking. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think I said infrared. He was up against. It was. I guess it's sort of astonishing that he made it for 14 days. He eluded those guys with all their tech, all their gizmo, all their force. And in that regard, and I was saying, America, maybe it's not just Americans, but we do love the bad guys who exhibit, this ability to elude the law. I mean, we made heroes out of folk heroes out of many, who are also murderers. Just saying. So the other thing I do want to say about it, though, is, did you see there's a few things I'm confused about. I saw a video that when they initially get him, and by the way, got him, a dog, okay? It wasn't a human. It was a dog. It was a dog that took him down and held him until all the humans could come on board. But, shut up. I got to tell you, I'm having I'm hooked into my phone as I do the show, and it's just amazing how many people call me. And so I get, and it distracts, to say the least. But I was shocked at how the first thing I saw is, so there he is, his back is to whoever's shooting this, and they turn him around and they're cutting his clothes off him. Did you see that? Why is that? I'm asking. Why is that procedural? The only time I ever had my clothes cut off me, and I have you? It's always interesting. But I was in an emergency room. Yeah. And that can happen in an ER. And I remember thinking at the time, no, it's my new gal. Dang it. Yeah. They cut it off. Shit. I let out a bit of protest, but there was nothing I could do. But okay, but they got him. It's 100-1. Why do you cut his clothes off for? Then the other question I have is, once he's, I guess, naked, or I think he's down to his shorts, they take a picture with him, like like it's the same. I have the same reaction to it as I have reactions of big game hunters posing with some animal they've just killed, and it's like it doesn't seem like the right thing to do. Hey, your job is to apprehend this guy. You don't need to and I guess they're posing with their, and then, I guess I'm not the only one who reacted that way, because other people said, that is just not done. It's not considered the humane thing to do, either in war with a captured prisoner, to treat them like a trophy, living or dead. But it happens a lot. And I was reminded of, I think, something Vince Lombardi said once about making a big to-do if you scored a touchdown. And boy, Vince Lombardi, if he saw what happens now, make a touchdown, that they go into, choreographed group, it's practically like the Rockettes, he would lose his mind. But he was talking, I think, even about spiking the ball or whatever, showing, and he said, he said, this is the quote, act like you've been there before. Strength is shown by just hand the ball to the ref and walk away. Been here, done that. That's cooler And I've always felt that that is true. And, but not in this day and age. This day and age, you gotta, take selfies and draw attention and act like you're a big to-do. Just saying. And I don't mean to sound like I'm sympathetic to this. He must be a frightening man. But you got to give him this. Woo! And he's done now. I don't think he'll be escaping again. But, wow. Pretty impressive. I'm sorry. An impressive killer, if there ever was one. That's all I'm going to say. Uh-oh. So this new, is it Walter Isaacson? How does he get to, by the way, he's a biographer. How does he talk himself into being the biographer for all of these, people that, didn't he do Steve Jobs? I mean, people who otherwise would say, no, I don't want, I think he did Jobs, and now he's got his Musk biography is coming out or is out. I think it's still coming. And he spends, an incredible amount of time with these subjects, as he did with Musk. But he's starting to, do the the publicity tour. And the little bits and pieces I've seen and heard are unsurprising, dovetail with what, we see in his behavior. But it is unsettling. I rarely read biographies, especially of people who are still alive, are so young. And I doubt that I'll read this one, but I'll read of it. I'll read the excerpts. I'll read the book reviews. I'll let other people glean the salient parts, and I will do that. But so, the sort of like fascinating aspects is, like what makes him tick. That he is one of the most powerful people in the world. He is either the or the second richest person in the world. And riches by themselves obviously give you power. But his power derives not just from his money, it's from how he got his money. And where, the things that he controls anyway. And that he does all this stuff that the privatization of government. Another great idea the Republicans had. Leads to somebody like Elon Musk essentially being what NASA used to be. And allowing one human being that level of power is such a national security risk, especially if he's unstable, which he is. And I think Isaacson makes that clear. I mean, he says, the guy that, shows himself publicly is the guy he is. Mercurial. He goes into these like crazy, like, manic, crazy things, and he can't be stopped. Rarely sleeps. He was bullied as a kid. He also had an abusive father, and his father was a lunatic and a violent man. And Elon's mother, it apparently says, worries that Elon is looking a lot like his father. And it's not a pretty picture. But his father did not have the power that he has. Anyway, scary stuff. And Laura, you get the last word. The news reported they cut his clothes off and took pictures of his tattoos to verify it was the correct man. Well, okay, all right. You could have pulled up the thing. I don't know. Seemed a bit over the top, she says, because they had the gun and he was wearing clothes that had reported stolen, right down to the Red Wing boots on his feet, right? Like they didn't, excuse me. The guy crawling through the underbrush. I think that's the guy. Let's make sure. Well, that is dotting the I's, crossing the T's, doing it by the book. But if they were doing it by the book, they would not have posed for that picture, which apparently is not part of procedure. Just saying. All right. Hey, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate your input. And I really rely on your input. And have a great weekend. Happy New Year. It's the Jewish New Year begins this weekend. Happy Rosh Hashanah, Lashana Tova, as we say, to my Jewish friends. And I'll be back on Monday. Okay? Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.